This upcoming concert season will be all about the boots, and Tecovas is your stop for the best in Western style. Tecovas has seasonal and limited edition offerings this spring and summer, including men's and women's boots, apparel, hats, bags, and more. All Tecovas boots are made by hand in a time-honored tradition with timeless styles that are always on trend. And Tecovas has first wear comfort with little to no break-in period. It's hard to find this level of comfort paired with this level of style. Stop by your local Tecovas store, have a complimentary drink or two, that's WCB style, and shop new styles. The smell of fresh leather and friendly staff are at your service. Many stores even have leather custom branding to make your boots truly personalized. And with regular live music and events, there's no in-store experience like it. If you can't make it into a store, just visit tecovas.com. That's TECOVAS.com. They offer free shipping on all boots, as well as free returns and exchanges, and ship right to your door. Go to tecovas.com and find your new favorite pair of boots today.
Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
Join Justin Townsend and the Harvesting Nature crew as they explore the world of cooking wild fish and game while sharing recipes, tips, tricks, and lessons learned from their pursuit of wild food. We sure hope you ate before the show, 'cause you're gonna leave hungry. This is the Wild Fish and Game Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Harvesting Nature's Wild Fish and Game Podcast. You got your host here, Justin Townsend, and today I'm joined by my esteemed colleague to the Great White North and a very special guest who we're going to introduce here in a moment. Today we're going to chat a little bit about turkey hunting, about turkey cooking, and about a new book called The Turkey Book. So that may allude to who our guest is if you've been following him on social media or following really anything in the wild turkey world. This has made a lot of splash, I'd say, in a very good way. So we'll get into that here in a moment. I'll just want to take a couple moments to sort of catch everybody up on sort of happenings for me. So it's midway through our turkey season here in Colorado. Been out a couple times, as I mentioned on our last episode, and planning to get back out again, hopefully this weekend. It's always challenging with kids and sports and all those things, but I'll squeeze some time out and get out in the field. Also, too, we've had a spell of rain, then warm weather, then cold weather, then rain, then warm weather, so the mushrooms, the morels, the oysters, the asparagus are all out in full bloom. So that's another plan of mine this weekend coming up, is taking the family out to do a bit of foraging. So excited about that. And always, too, I'll remind everybody this is the perfect time of the year to check your spice cabinet and make sure you're all lined out for the spring season. And two spice blends that we have at Harvesting Nature I recommend: our Upland Fowl Spice Blend and our Wild Fish Spice Blend, given that both of those are great things to be doing right now, shooting turkeys and catching fish and eating both of them. They're over in our store. We got plenty in stock, so swing on through and pick up a bottle if you need to refresh the pantry. I think that's all for me, Adam. I'll kick it over to you.
Just want to mention too, the new mushroom seasoning we have would be perfect to dust your morels with. So everyone who's out there harvesting morels, don't forget that. I feel like up in Ontario here we've had a very similar weather pattern with cold, rain, warm, cold, rain, warm. But it is good for mushrooms, and the morels have finally started popping up here. So I see on my socials the slow march of the morels up from the south up to finally get to me now. I've been impatiently waiting, and now in my region I see they're popping up, so I'm going to be out there a lot for them. Fiddleheads as well, so I'm out there foraging most days, and then hopefully get out for a turkey hunt soon. Looking forward to that. So just love this time of year. Love the spring. There's lots of good fresh flavors outside, and bring in lots of cool stuff.
I wrote a newsletter at work the other day in my full-time job, and in it I was like, hey, the farmers markets are opening, like go out and go out and get some fresh spring vegetables, like make some rhubarb pie, make a spinach lasagna, and like named off all these things, and everybody got a big kick out of it because it's no way at all food related on that side, so it was good to just kind of mention it. All right, well, thanks for the update, Adam. I'll go ahead and introduce our guest. So our guest today is a world-class chef, owner of Daidue, a butcher shop and supper club in Austin, Texas, where everything on the menu is sourced locally. He's also the head instructor of the New School of Traditional Cookery. In 2012, he released Afield, a chef's guide to preparing and cooking wild game and fish, which was nominated for a James Beard Award. And then in 2021, he released The Hog Book, which won a James Beard Award in 2022. We chatted with him about The Hog Book back in 2021 when it came out, and today we're going to discuss his newest book, The Turkey Book. So, Jesse Griffiths, welcome to the Wild Fish and Game podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back, and it's a pleasure to get on and chat again, as always. So, really, we chatted with you in 2021. Aside from the book, what's been going on? It's been a couple years. How have things been?
Yeah, great. Great, busy. In the best of ways. Definitely, refocused on turkeys for a while last year. So, I mean, the new book was based on last season. So the 2023 season is represented in that book. And then this year I'm quote unquote promoting that. So I have to spend a lot of time hunting turkeys right now. So I would say overall life is pretty good.
Yeah.
I landed in a great job. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So you spent the majority of the 2023 season, so both spring and fall, kind of hunting, researching, cooking, all that for the book. How did that go?
Yeah, so the entire the hunting portion of the book took place during the spring. We started to test recipes with the previous season's frozen birds before that, and then we tested and shot a lot of the recipes in the book during the spring season, and then in the summer and fall after that also just continued to just kind of hammer out these recipes and work on those. It was a lot more difficult to come by material for testing recipes than it was, say, for the hog book, where I can order a feral hog, or there's no shortage. If I was like, hey, can somebody spare a wild pig, and like 30 people would start dropping them off at my back steps. But turkey's a little different, so we had to be very conscientious about our usage. And when you're doing a food shoot, you sometimes there can be some waste, but when you're shooting turkey dishes, there is no waste. You're eating every little bit of that after you get the photos and stuff. So that was kind of the sequence of that.
Also, not a bad way to spend the fall, just eating wild turkey.
Sure.
No, I see too, like in the book too, I noticed like in the hog book, a lot more like butchery photography, a lot more layouts and kind of going through. And there is definitely that in the turkey book, but I noticed a little less of it, and that sort of like explains it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Well, also there's just so much less that you do with the turkey. A hog, a big fat sow can be cut in so many different ways. And turkey, there's a very finite amount of cuts that you can make off of it. And it's mostly just exploring preparations with that. And then with this book, it was a lot more focused on the hunts and the setting and the people and the culture behind it, the regions, the differences in all of them, the trees, flora and fauna, things like that. So it was had a different focus, less textbook like than the hog book, more of just a respectful ode to turkeys in general.
Nice. And obviously, I have a question on here to ask you if you're turkey hunting now, but we've already talked about it. So I see it continues, which is good. I think it's too, like, probably a really cool way to promote the book is just to get out and, do the activity that you're talking about and cook the food that you're talking about, and people can kind of see it firsthand.
Sure, if that's how we want to justify it. That's great. So,
I mean,
It's like I said, I'm like, I am quote unquote promoting the book heavily. I hunted in Texas a lot already. I haven't left Texas yet, but tagged out here on the last hunt, and Texas is a 4-bird state. So I have a generous amount of turkey in the freezer right now. And then 2 days from now, I head to New Mexico to do some more book promotion for 5 days up in the mountains. And then after that, it'll be Washington State.
Nice.
And then it'll be over, and I feel like that'll be I'll probably be ready for it at that point, kind of put everything in it for a couple months, and, you're kind of ready to take that break. And then about a month after that, I'll probably start to get a little antsy and ready for next season, which I've already started to book too. The 2025 turkey season is filling up real quick because I figure that promotion doesn't just end this spring. So
nope, got to keep going.
yeah.
So no, that's awesome.
You were thinking of coming to Canada potentially next year?
I've considered it. Yeah. I mean, I've considered combining a turkey hunt with a trip to Montreal. I've never been there, and I mean, just in general, I've always wanted to visit Montreal. My birthday is in May, and that coincides with turkey season in Canada, and so I'm trying to put together like the ultimate trip for that birthday, where I would be like eat at some world-class restaurants in Montreal, and then also kill a turkey in Canada. So that sounds pretty fun to me, but I'll see if I can put it together.
And if you go to Montreal, you definitely have to eat at Au Pied de Cochon and Joe Beef, which you probably know already.
Those are the two on my list. That was like, those are the, I mean, that is, you just told me my entire list. Yeah. I mean, no offense, I'm way ahead of you on that.
Yeah,
years
just incredible.
Obsessive fascination with both of those restaurants. I love the style and how they represent the cuisine up there, and then they're both very wild food oriented too. And so you just named them the three reasons. Maybe shoot a turkey, Au Pied de Cochon, and Joe Beef. And then I've heard it's also a beautiful city.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
So I guess the other fun question we like to ask, we asked you this last time too, which was an interesting question because it popped up, I think, the first time in our podcast series ever. But what's in your freezer now? What are you looking forward to cooking?
Right now in the freezer, turkey, a good amount of it. But I mean, we've been going through it at a mathematically improper pace. I'd say we're eating too much right now, and I'm just like, I need to slow down a little bit because this is definitely, I still have 6 days of turkey hunting left, but we all know how that can go. I could have all the turkey that I'm going to get this year already in the freezer, and I'm not behaving like that, and I need to. Beyond that, a couple axes I put in the freezer in October. So we mostly worked through those. That was really nice to have. A couple whitetail. Also, my daughter killed one and my girlfriend killed one. So we have some nice, we have a good amount of whitetail in there. And then just some fish from the spring. I was able to squeeze in a little bit of spring fishing, which has become the real conundrum for me in the past few years as I've delved more and more and deeply into turkey hunting, is that it coincides with spring fishing in a really bad way. And I am unable to focus on two things at once. So I have to like end my fishing and then start turkey hunting. And it's been rough. But I did manage to go on a handful of fishing trips. So there's a bunch of white bass in the freezer and a few crappie in the freezer. And so we've been working through that too. But this summer it'll be time to go down to the coast, and we'll do some coastal fishing and kind of re-up on redfish and black drum, flounder.
Nice. Ooh, also very tasty. I'm headed back to the coast this summer out of landlocked Colorado and heading back. So I'll be on the East Coast for a year or so in the DC area. So try to get out to do some cool fishing out there too.
Crabbing too.
Yeah, no, we were walking through the store the other day and I was complaining to my wife. I was like, you know what? I was like, Colorado, definitely a void of fresh crabs here, but like even just regular crabs, unless you go to like a specialty store or something, like getting a hold of any kind of crab is more challenging. And I was complaining about that, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I look forward. We're going to be near the Chesapeake. Like I'm going to pick up my blue crab license and get out and try to catch some blue crabs, and they got snakehead there, all kinds of like cool fish too. And I love the invasives, so definitely excited to target those. So we'll see what the summer brings for me. But no, I am excited like you to get down to the coast and do some fishing. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the book. So I guess first and foremost, you came out of the Hog Book. Congrats on the James Beard Award. It's awesome. So well earned. That's an amazing book. We use it for our pig camps down that we teach in Texas, and it's such a great resource to have and to use, and very good. It's actually on the shelf behind me there. And I will say, so why turkey? Why was turkey the next step?
I guess just say dress for the job you want, and it's kind of just circling back to I've kind of figured out how to love my job, and it was something I wanted to focus on. And originally, the idea is to just use the Hog Book as a template, and we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And that the Hog Book, I think as a format, it really worked for me in that. The way we presented it, different sizes, and then breaking down recipes within the chapters and some shorter stories. I thought it was great, and so I thought, well, why not just use that as a template and then make one about turkeys, and got just into the production of that and realized that wasn't going to work at all. First off, it's just like I have a lot of experience hunting hogs, and I've been around wild pigs for many years, and I've butchered hundreds of them. And turkeys was something that I was just and I still would say I'm a very amateur turkey hunter, which is a great place to be. So I have plenty to learn. It's very much an ongoing vocation. And so I realized early on that this just following with the same template of like short story, butchery diagram, and a bunch of recipes wasn't going to exactly work. And so morphed more into like a long form story of multiple day hunts, and then also bringing in other people. So I'm hunting with chefs, landowners that are doing interesting and unique things as far as conservation and stewarding their land, and then hunters that are just very good at turkey hunting and also interested in the food part of it, and then kind of delving a little bit into the breakdown of turkeys, and then recipe blocks after that. But the recipes, I felt like there's a lot of coverage for turkey. There's a lot of recipes out there. There's definitely a lot of writing about the hunting side of it. And then like if you go on YouTube, there is no shortage of content about that. And there's very beautiful writing and a history of writing, like hundreds of years of writing about turkey hunting. It's like it's well covered. And so I realized that we can't really go in and try to repeat these things, either stuff that other people have done or stuff that we'd already done. So we tried to create this kind of beginner's journey, like I think I told somebody, Ben O'Brien, who came along on all the hunts with me this past season. I told him once that I felt like if turkeys were a school, I would be I'm in first grade or second grade or something like that, which is fine. It's, like I said, it's a good place to be. Like you still haven't even made it out of grade school, with these things, because they can be a little tricky. And so I thought that the best way to approach it would be to be very open about that and be like, hey, listen, everybody, I love this. I'm very curious about this. I'm going to talk to a lot of other people and gain their perspectives, whether it's hunting or conservation or how to do a controlled burn or things like that, and also cooking. And so invited a lot of people along, and then just kind of traveled. And we tried to pick 4 drastically different regional spots within the United States. So Texas, Georgia, Oregon, and Connecticut. And what these also provided were, beyond just the the difference in geography, and temperature and climate, difference in hunting culture, the people there and how they cook, how they approach turkeys, everything, was very different. No matter where we were, like Texas versus Connecticut or Oregon versus Georgia, we're all drastically different things, but all they had this one same, common theme of turkey. And so we decided to approach it like that instead. And I think it really worked well, and had a lot of fun doing it. And I learned a lot. I'm not saying I graduated to third grade. I don't think I did. I think I got held back for summer school. But I don't really care. It's all good in the end. And we came home with a turkey in every stop, at least one. And so we made it work, and that's kind of how it came about.
No, that's awesome. Adam, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just thinking, you intimated in the past that that you felt a little pigeonholed by the wild hog thing, because you put out that incredible book. You probably spent several years and with that as well, just dealing only with hogs, but you said you're a lot more than just wild hogs. So has it felt good to be able to branch into something new and jump into a new direction to add more to that, show the world that you're not just wild hogs?
Definitely. And I think that's a great question. And I think I also did want to do that because, when you start getting referred to as the hog guy or this, the hog guy really, it does. I'm like, I really do a lot of other things. I mean, I enjoy cooking vegetables also, there's a lot of things out there, have a bit more range than just hogs, but very appreciative too, to be thought of as someone that you'd want to approach with a question about hogs. And I had to be very careful too with that because I'm not an expert on turkeys. And so, people approach me about questions about turkeys. I have to be very careful and be like, hey, listen, I might not know the answer to that. I can tell you about my experiences. And I think that I really tried to be clear about that in the turkey book, is that just like, hey, we're kind of coming on if you're a new hunter, you're kind of coming along with me on this journey. And if you're an experienced hunter, then maybe you've bought this book for some ideas in the kitchen or just ways to explore that. And that's where I feel much more comfortable is cooking, out in the woods, still learning and even in the kitchen, still learning. But it is nice to not just be the hog guy anymore. And people are like, hey, do you want to come hog hunting at my place? I'm like, well, sure. I mean, if I have time, that's a very generous invite. But, when somebody's like, hey, do you want to come turkey hunting at my place? It's like, there's a little more. I'm like, yeah, I probably want to do that. It's like, I mean, it might open some more doors for me there. So, but yeah, I think that's an excellent question.
So we'll switch a little bit to like kind of the food side of it. So looking, obviously, wild turkey as a culinary ingredient is this great thing that we've discussed and open with. But to you, how has working more with wild turkey sort of shaped your culinary outlook or inspired you to do things a little differently? What has motivated you to work with it or as you're in that process?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm going to give you a very deep-rooted answer.
Sure.
I realized, I mean, I grew up in a household that wasn't very food-oriented. I mean, we ate very simply, did not have a lot of money, and, it was pretty straightforward. There's a lot of TV dinners and stuff like that. We go out to eat, we'd go eat fried catfish, stuff like that, or fried chicken. And I kind of realized the other day is like, I really like poultry a lot, it's like, that's what I grew up around. I just in the past few years have developed like a real affinity for steaks, or just like medium rare meat, it's like, I just did not grow up eating anything like that. And I mean, I love it and cook it all the time, but there are definitely some foundational things from your upbringing that will mold your palate or just your path in life. And I was realizing that, I mean, I really like to eat wild turkey a lot. And I mean, just call me out if I say that too much during this conversation. But, I mean, I mean, to the point where, NWTF, they're probably like, oh, we love having this support, but hey, man, can you calm it down on this? Like, because we want to have turkeys in the future, but you're just kind of telling everybody to go eat all of them. And I'm like, don't eat all of them, but, like, have you had it? It's pretty good. And so I realized that I absolutely love eating it. And I love how each part of it is different. The breast is super accessible. You can feed it to a kid. You could probably trick somebody that, like, I don't eat game. You could probably trick them with some turkey breast. It's got enough flavor, and it's unique and assertive enough that you can identify it as turkey, but it is, like I said, very accessible and very easy to serve to people. And I absolutely love it. I mean, I love turkey breast. I also love the legs. I love the offal, and the wings and the necks and the stock and all that stuff. It's just like, it's all just so good. And I tend to hoard it, as alluded to earlier. And so I think that there's just, I love wild pigs, right? I love eating pork and what they can provide, like a really fatty sow. You get the ribs on the grill and all these things. But at the end of the day, it honestly is my favorite. And I think that's really what inspires me to go. Let me back up and rephrase that. That's what inspired me to start hunting them, is because after I'd had it, I was like, oh, I need more of that. And then the hunt itself started to graduate into this more, I developed more patience in general for hunting. I think I'm a much better hunter now because of, if it makes sense, how much I love to eat wild turkey. I am now a better hunter because hunting them has required of me so much more, like, patience, forced skill, and just the ability to sit still for a long time, and the ability to fail, or the acceptance, or the grace to fail. And so I know that's not a culinary question per se, or a culinary answer, but it really started with the meat of the wild turkey, and then kind of went backwards from there for me.
I think they're both, like, rooted together. So yeah, no, that's a great answer. And oh man, I just had a thought and I lost it. Oh gosh, I'm blaming it on my age.
I don't want to tell you what birthday I'm celebrating in Canada. It's a scary one, man. Yeah, the big 3-0.
The big 3-0.
Yeah. Wait, did you say this was a video or audio? Yeah. Restaurant life, it takes a toll, man.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I got, a head full of gray hair, and I'm only 21.
Don't rub in the head full part of that. I would have a head full of gray hair. You.
Man. All right. So I guess, in your book, you definitely go very in depth to, like, the use of the whole turkey. And a lot of folks, traditionally with turkey, just kind of, like, breast them out, much like waterfowl, and kind of move on from the rest. How much meat are people losing, and how much of a travesty is it to just leave it?
The answer is a lot and a travesty. I ran some numbers on a couple turkeys, weight, and they're one of the highest yielding animals or fish out there at about 55% for a healthy big tom. 55% bone-in edible cuts. So, I mean, I keep the bone in there, because then that can account for stock as well. It would actually, with the addition of, like, rich stock, would actually push that number up by weight yield. But, just raw bone-in weight, you're looking at about 55%. So if you have a 20-pound bird, that's 11 pounds of bone-in meat. That's not nothing right there. I think, I try to be very calm and generous and kind with my approach to teaching or encouraging people. But there will come a point where I have to be honest. And I think that discarding the legs on a turkey is offensive. Like, I think it does not take very much time to do that. maybe 5 minutes, let's say 10, if you're really taking your time or you're new at it and you just don't really know your way around it. And if your point is that's too much time, I want to just remind you that you just sat under a tree for 7 hours and you probably drove for 4 or 5 hours. Or on Friday, I'm about to drive for 11 hours to go probably sit under a tree for 4 days. Taking the legs off that turkey is an infinitesimal amount of time in comparison to all that. So I will get a little fussy about that. You know, like if a farmer has a sounder of hogs coming in and every night and they're rooting up his field and he goes out there and kills 5 of them and pulls the back straps off of one of them, I'm like, that's cool. I get it. Even none of them. I mean, if he just has to rid his farm of that, I mean, I see that. But turkey hunting is different, and it is a game animal, and it has to be highly respected. It's also a finite resource, and it is a resource. And as a resource, by definition, it is something that's tangible and you can hold. And when you don't take as much as you can, and however you want to justify that, I do think that there is a disconnect there. I think there's a problem. And to say, I watched a YouTube video and it's like, this is how we clean a turkey. And it was sponsored by a big, I can't remember, it was a big hunting company, camo company, I believe. And he's like, this is how you clean a turkey. He definitely took the time to cut the beard and the fan off, right? And then he removed the breasts and video over, cut. And I'm like, wait, are you done? Like, really? You're not even going to take the legs? And then there was, I think, a hashtag save the legs. And I'm like, we need a movement to save the legs. You know, that's like hashtag don't kick puppies, man. It's like, sure, we're all on board. I mean, really, do we need to? So, no, I'm past encouraging people to take the legs. I'm going to guilt you phase now, and then we move on to things like the offal, the wings, and the neck, and it's like we can talk about that. I get it. That's harder. That's going to be more difficult to navigate, and I do think that there are legitimate excuses to not sometimes. The neck's shot up, struggling with the wings or things like that, but that's why I included that in the book, is to just help people start to do that. And I think the real bottleneck, the real impasse that we hit with this is the way that we perceive enjoyment. You know, preparing for the trip, you know, packing, sighting in your shotgun or patterning your shotgun, the actual hunt, hearing the gobble, roosting, all that, the hunt, killing a tom, and then we're done. That's when the fun ends. Now it's just work. I got to carry this thing back, and you get it to the tailgate, and then you're like, ugh. And I think that's the real mindset reset that we need to work on, is that the enjoyment is more of a plateau between the preparation, planning of a hunt, all the way through when you finally eat that bird. And every part of that can be a lot of fun, including breaking down a bird. I love to take my time and do it well, and every once in a while just stop and say, this is very enjoyable. I love cleaning deer. Like, they're kind of just easy and like very a hospitable animal to skin, gut, and break down. Pigs are harder. But I'm not saying I dislike it, but I mean, I just like, deer is something, like if you roll into camp and somebody's got a deer, and I'll be like, I'll clean that for you. And they're really like, why? Really? I'm like, I love it. I mean, what else are we doing here? Like, what? Like, go get me a glass of champagne and I'll clean your deer for you. Give me a bottle of champagne, I'll clean your deer for you. And so, same with turkeys. You know, it's just like, I really enjoy that part of it. I really enjoy watching that animal, you know, become, you know, closer to food, and also how it cools quickly. And so you're starting to get, you know, it's hot, you know, when you first touch the bird and you cut it open, and this heat just seems to kind of come out of it. And as that heat is radiating out, I feel like that you're feeling there's a tactile transition between hot and cold. And I love that, because that signifies to me, you know, that's between life and food, and it's starting to become more on the food side. And I think that overall, we just really need to encourage people to remember that all of this can be enjoyable if you just think that it is. You know, if you get out of that mindset, it's like, oh, I have to deal with this now. And that's why we don't save the legs. That's why we have to have hashtags that save the legs, is because we've decided that that's not fun. or we had a bad experience in cooking the legs. And there's a lot of resources out there. You're a resource. I'm a resource about how to do it, and it's quite simple. It's really like, they were tough. Well, cook them longer. Like, that's it. It's quite simple, and then you end up with this very delicious meat. Oh, there's a lot of tendons in there. I'm like, yeah, they kind of just fall out though. I mean, they're the white parts. You pull those out, and then the shreddy dark brown parts are what goes in the taco. So it's very straightforward. It really just doesn't make any sense to me to put all of that effort into every other part of it, like learning to call with a diaphragm call or something requires very large amount of time and skill and dedication, and practice and, repetition. And, so does cleaning and utilizing that bird to its fullest. And this the feeling you get when you finally get that tom on the ground after you've worked that thing for 3 hours, or and he's turned you around and this and that, and then you finally have him on the ground, and the elation that you feel, I think that should translate. Continue. It needs to keep going.
I mean, yeah, continue past even to the table of like, here's this beautiful thing I have. Like, here's my friends, here's my family. Look at all this hours and days and months and weeks I put into preparation, and like it comes down, to a bite, which is great.
Yeah,
and I think it's really awesome. I think the other thing you reminded me, we've been floating around this term and talking a lot about it, but culinary conservation, of the aspect of meat, animals exist in the environment. We take care of the environment. We spend a lot of time grooming and doing all the things to improve habitat, to bring species back, to increase numbers, but thinking about it from a culinary perspective as well, of like, we're harvesting this resource for our own use. And you mentioned it is tangible. You can hold it. It's accounted for. It's regulated. We have to be careful with it and be responsible with it. So why not start to incorporate that into the model of like our thoughts on conservation, of like, so much goes into one animal, its life, we're taking it, and then we should be respecting it and using it onward. And I think that like that whole aspect of culinary conservation, kind of, we're out there harvesting for food too, like that's very important.
Yeah, like how many meals can you get out of one bird? Is it going to be 2 meals, or is it going to be 10, 12 meals out of one bird? If you're
12, I mean, if you do it right, it's like, if you break it down and your portions are calculated to be like what your family or your household needs. I think, like I said, that's if you have 11 pounds of bone-in turkey, that's a bunch of meals. If you're eating a 4 or 5 ounce portion, then that is 44, or let's call it like 35 to 45 portions.
Yeah.
Right. That's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. So I think, and they deserve it. They deserve it. And
Absolutely.
Also, it's objectively delicious. Like, it's so good. Like, even the heart, liver, gizzard, I would argue, are maybe the best offal of any game animal too. A turkey liver, one liver can make enough like pate, like a very simple like puree with butter, as an appetizer for 4 people. Like, that's insane. And then you could follow that with a couple drumsticks for dinner, and feed the 4 people like a main course off of that, and really celebrate. And so I think that just this idea that it's a smaller animal than a deer, which it is, but like there's still a pretty large amount coming off of that. And if you need to think about it in that context, or like by weight or volume, what you're getting back, it's not nothing.
Yeah. I was thinking back to what you're saying about enjoying the whole process. I really like plucking my birds. So I got 2 turkeys last year and plucked them both. And, it's kind of a monotonous task, but I liken it kind of to cleaning a kitchen. It's something, like it's a bit of monotonous, but once you're done, the satisfaction of having a nice sparkling clean kitchen, or a fully defeathered bird, is immense. Like, you just feel like you've accomplished something. It looks beautiful. You've done it, and it looks great. And now you can move on to the next steps. And I feel like people don't they need to kind of search for that feeling of satisfaction, and they'll find it if they put the extra work in.
Certainly. I'm gonna hijack your podcast now, and I'm gonna start asking questions.
Yeah.
So, plucking birds. So this is, I don't want to say it's contentious, because I think that there's two camps. Obviously, there's the skinning camp and then the plucking camp, and we actually created a Venn diagram around this for the book for everybody that we hunted with, whether they plucked and skinned or a little bit of both. And it's kind of fascinating. A lot of chefs will skin birds. I personally skin all my birds, but deep respect to the plucking camp out there too. But I'm always curious as to the why. So what are the products that you're getting out of the turkey that you are purposely retaining skin for?
I think I like to keep it for options. I oftentimes will take the skin off before cooking after having put all that work into plucking. But I do not throw that skin out.
Oh, okay. What are you doing with it?
So then I'm rendering it for a little bit of turkey fat or schmaltz or whatever to then cook what I'm like the meat in, just to be able to layer on more flavors. And then in other times where I decide to keep the skin on, I let it do its job basting or crisping up or whatever else in there, or even lending flavor and fat to a stock or whatever.
Certainly.
I just like having options. So I do that with my geese and my ducks and my turkeys and my grouse and my doves and everything. I pluck them and then decide in the kitchen whether I'm going to do a skin on or off preparation.
Okay, just so you have options.
Yeah.
So oddly enough, I pluck everything besides turkeys, including doves. And in Texas, if you want to get a lot of hell in a dove field, you sit out there for 45 minutes plucking each dove, and they'll look at you like you're an idiot. And I'm just like, trust me on this one. Also, again, I love plucking doves, and I'm really fast at it now. But it wasn't meant to be a challenging question. I'm legitimately fascinated by this, by plucking, and I think so much of it is the goal to see that bird beautiful and plucked in that phase, and I can totally understand that, because there's nothing that looks like that. When I've got the bird pieced out on a baking tray, it's not nearly as rewarding as looking at a whole beautifully, perfectly plucked bird. And I'm always wondering about the culinary applications too, because that's one thing with turkey, especially when you get into the regions where how different people cook, you'll start to see some more vast differences in the way they prepare things than with, I would say, even hogs and deer or any other game. You start to see some real cultural and regional differences in the preparations. And I mean, as somebody that's fascinated by cooking turkeys, I'm always going to ask, like, do you skin or pluck? And if you're plucking, what are you making with that? Like, real curious about that, because my reason behind skinning is like what I'm making, when we're doing cutlets or little grilled paillards where we're pounding them thin and grilling them really quick, or fried turkey, which is just my favorite meal in the world. Just cut into like strips and then fried, brined and fried. So when I hear about plucking, I'm always just like, what? So what do you got going on over there? Like, what's, and the answer is always good. I love that. I love that. And I think that another key thing in this discussion is that, like, that's fine. Like I'm not like, I mean, in the book we show plucking and skinning. We demonstrate both of them in there. Personally, I've gotten to the point where I might pluck a bird this season just for fun, just to look at it.
Yeah.
And then have those options, like you said. There are some skin recipes in there too, but it does fascinate me.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. So here's my confession. You guys ready for it? This is hot news. I have never shot a turkey.
Oh.
Yeah, I've spent hours and days and weeks hunting turkey, but any turkey recipe you ever see from me was likely gifted turkey. So I am on the hot pursuit, as always. But
that's going to be a sweet day.
Yeah.
When you do.
Yeah.
How long does your season... See, I'm still podcasting over here. How long does your season go in Colorado?
We have until the 15th, I think. So we have 15 more days. May? Yeah, May. So I got another 2 weeks. So I may... I'm thinking of you. I think that you need to get out there. I also think you
you're looking a little rough there. You feeling all right?
Right? I need to call into work. I don't know. Yeah.
Be careful. You don't want to get any other people sick, right?
It's true, right? It's a threat these days. Yeah.
Go spend some time.
Yeah,
Go
in the
spend some time
sun,
alone in the woods.
Solitude is key to not transmit anything. No, that's where it's at. I tell you honestly, Jesse, my biggest thing. So my daughter is 11, and she started hunting last year. She went through hunter's ed and all that. I want to get her a turkey before me, because she's so into the hunting aspect of it because of the food piece. Because we don't do. We have a rule with my wife. My wife's pescatarian. When I met her, she was vegetarian, and then later we had this conversation of we've got kids now. What do we do about wild game? And we settled that was the answer. Our kids could eat wild game, or they could eat domestic farm raised animal from somebody we knew or a source we trusted. So
I love it.
But that has created. My daughter's put wild game on this pedestal, and she sees, she goes out and she sees her friends, and they're eating chicken tenders, or eating all these other food that, you can just go to the store and get. And she's like, I want to go hunting. I want to shoot my first goose. I want to shoot my first turkey. Because I want to eat it. I want that experience of going out, harvesting the animal, bringing it back and cooking it, and then sitting down and eating it. So, that to me is more exciting. And I got to take my 4-year-old out, and he was upset that I even thought that I was going to leave the house without him. And I'm like, we went and set out, I'll give him credit. He sat for 2.5 hours under the tree with me. His little feet were bouncing back and forth, but he was there, and I was like, all right, man, it's time to go. It's getting late in the afternoon. He's like, Dad, I want the turkeys to come. And I'm like, yeah, I want the turkeys to come too.
That makes 2 of us.
Yeah. And he's out there with his Red Ryder BB gun, and he's ready. And I'm like, dude, I love it. That to me excites me just as much as just the thought of me shooting a turkey is getting to be out with them. So
yeah,
it'll happen. It'll happen at the right moment, at the right time. The most miserable. I spent 4 days in a rainy, tarp-covered patch in Central Florida for Osceola, only to have one come out. It stopped at the tree line, at the edge. I saw the track in the road. It walked out the road, just looked around, was something's weird, turned around and walked the other way, and I was like, that was my shot. So ticks and all those things exciting too. But yeah, there's my big confession. I don't really care. It success, failure, whatever. It's all part of the story. I think with me as well. So, but I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about me because we got you here. I guess let's talk more specifically about the book. I've got my copy here. Flipped through it, read a bit of it. I did too. I noticed, you mentioned, there's a lot of time spent about sort of telling the story, talking about it. And other just cool details sort of about the culture of turkey hunting and all that. And I think one thing, so I was flipping through it, my son, I mentioned earlier, was we were out, and while we were out hunting, he found a turkey feather, which he brought back as that was his exciting thing he brought back from the field. And then in the book, you've got the image of how to write with the turkey feather to clip it to make a quill. So he saw me flipping through that and saw that, and that is now at the top of his to-do list to figure out how to write with a feather. So thank you for the inspiration.
Yeah, it's remarkably easy. It'll kind of freak you out. You just cut it and then make a little groove in it and dip it in ink, and then it just works. And the first time I did it, I was shocked. I was like, oh, that really works well. I think I might only write with feather quill pens now. Just look like a little fancy boy just walking around. But yeah, he'll love it. I strongly urge you to pursue that project.
All right, we'll do it. So, looking in the book, I guess, are there any things that you immediately want to point people to that you're if you're going to flip through the book and read something, what's the one thing you should absolutely clue into?
I'm really happy with the breast chapter, how I like to break breast down into three parts, a top lobe, a bottom lobe, and then the tenderloin, and how you can kind of get different uses out of that and more mileage. And It helps with portioning a little bit too, instead of just freezing a whole breast and then coming back to a pretty substantial piece of meat. That could weigh a couple, 3 pounds from a large bird. And so, and then the uses from there. So not only is there just a cutlet recipe in there, or a paillard, which is basically an unbreaded cutlet that we'll throw on the grill, but I put multiple recipes for each one of those in there. So once you learn the technique, you can go in and then make those recipes, and then you can start to extrapolate that and use your own knowledge and start to substitute in things or just cook more intuitively with those techniques. And so I think like there's kind of a really very, very simple new approach to the butchery, combined with 2 really simple techniques that can then be expanded upon by the user. And I wanted to really kind of take the whole book in that kind of direction. And so there's a lot of recipes in there that are more technique based, like how to make pierogi, how to make stuffed pastas. And we do 3 different stuffed pastas. So you can make 3 different shapes and then 3 different sauces. And from there, you can kind of go in and then you can start to experiment. And I think that more than anything, like if you came up to me and said, like, I used a butchery technique out of the book, but I didn't use your recipe and I came up with my own, I would be very honored by that. Like, I think that, I mean, that's exactly what I would like, is for people to get confident and continue with that plateau of enjoyment, in the kitchen. Be like, oh, I want to experiment and have fun, or rely on my intuition and instincts in the kitchen. And so, not favorite recipes, favorite techniques for sure, but more than anything, just like really crafted it to inspire people to have more confidence.
So you mentioned I'll roll back just a little bit because I had a thought. You mentioned different regions and different dishes as you were hunting. Did you experience different flavors from the turkey? From different regions as you were eating it and preparing it?
Did not. And that's a common question. I was asked that last night. I did a BHA event at Yeti, and they asked that, and I can't tell the difference between a swamp eastern in Georgia and a pine seed eaten Ponderosa pine Rooston Miriam's hybrid from Oregon. I've not been able to detect any discernible difference. Now, if there was like a side by side, maybe at the same time, of like a Montana sagebrush living bird and a corn-fed Texas bird, because let's face it, they eat a lot of corn down here, and we ain't growing it. I mean, we're growing it too, trust me, but we also throw a lot of it on the ground here, and turkeys seem to love that. Along with everything else, raccoons and deer and hogs. So I've not been able to detect any difference. I will say that, like some of these Texas birds can get real big, but then recently I've seen some pictures of some Easterns and some Merriams that were just pterodactyls. So the long answer is no.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I would think there'd be some definite regional differences. But no, I mean, that's good. And I think for, some folks that like equitable flavor across everywhere, that's probably comforting. So going a little bit more, I'm going to kind of ask some questions about sort of like some of the butchering techniques and then cooking techniques specific to some cuts. So your thoughts on the key to successfully cooking turkey wings? I guess butchering and cooking.
Mm-hmm. I say that they're equally, and then this is for you, Adam. They're equally hard to pluck or skin. So whichever route you choose, you're in it for at least one beer. But I enjoy them. There's a lot of meat, and I think it's hard to describe in a podcast situation. But there's a big chunk of meat, like what would be on the top of the turkey's shoulders, like right behind its neck, and you can remove that too. And it's a sizable piece. It's probably 2 or 3 ounces of meat on each side that can be attached to the wing. And so cutting that off increases the volume of the wing. So you've got your drumette and your flat. And so the drumette holding much, much more meat than the flat part. Sometimes on like a large Jake or something, I might not even bother with the flat, because there's just not going to be too much on there unless you want to save it for stock. But it's also the hardest part of the wing to clean. cooking, the way we approach that in the book is different ways to par cook and different ways to finish. And then we also include different sauces for finishing, but that's where you can really just get into anything. If you've just got a jar of barbecue sauce in your refrigerator and that's your choice, then do that. But we did different ways of preparing the wings, because I feel like you need to get them tender first. There's a par cooking and then there's a finishing step. So par cooking could be confit, it could be sous vide, it could be poaching with the resulting stock left over. So you get kind of two products. And then it can be finished by frying, grilling, smoking, roasting. There's any way to achieve kind of that char. And in that final step, you're basting with a sauce. So you're adding caramelization in there, but the step is pretty simple. I might have made it sound more complicated than it actually is, but basically get the wings tender and then cook them to make them crispy, and then put something delicious on them while you're doing that. And that something delicious is probably going to have two major components, that being sweet and sour. So that's sugar, honey, maple syrup, agave nectar, whatever it is. And then sour is lime juice, lemon juice, vinegar, or other condiments like mustard or things like that. So I think that, just using those base concepts, which is what I was just talking about, with the breasts, is like technique and a bunch of recipes, and then an easy way to extrapolate from there. But basically get them tender first and then achieve the final char. Again,
Yeah.
long answer.
No, that's what we're here for.
Okay.
And you mentioned turkey confit too. And could you explain a little bit like your process for the confit, just for those out there that may not know?
Right. And I hate to, it's a French word, and so that puts people off immediately a lot, so and I want everybody to know it's just like, it's a very classic technique, and you're very familiar with it. And essentially you're going to pre-season something, and this can apply to a lot of different meats, notably duck, fatty or waterfowl. It works beautifully for it. Also works great with wild pigs. And so you're going to apply salt and other delicious things to the outside, and you're essentially going to lightly cure it. And then after that, you're going to submerge that in fat. And that's another point of contention for people that are like, whoa, that's a lot of fat, or that's too much fat for, either it's like a cost or health reason. But you're not soaking it in fat. You're essentially just sealing it in this fat while you cook it. And that can be duck fat, lard, bear fat would be very good. My preferred would be lard, just because that's what I have access to. And then you're going to submerge that, just in pure fat, and cook it very, very gently. And that's key until it's tender, until you're kind of hermetically sealing it in there. You've seasoned it ahead of time, so that seasoning goes all the way to the bone. And then you can store it in the fat, and it'll preserve it for a very long time, like a shockingly long time, like months in your refrigerator, or in your larder, which is what we used to call pantries for that reason, where if lard was solid, you could store things in there. And so confit is a really good method, especially with the legs and the wings, also with the heart and gizzard, and arguably the liver as well. Would be very good in there, and all the neck too. You could confit all of these things, and then what you're going to have when you heat up that fat, pull it out, and then you can finish it however you want. You can roast it in a hot oven. You can throw it on a grill, which is exceptionally good. Or you could even throw it in a fryer full of beef fat or lard at that point. And, I mean, in for a dollar, in for a dime, right? Let's just do this. And so you finish it. So basically, you're adding texture at the end. So kind of you're going to see this over and over and over with the cooking of these lean, drier meats. Is this like achieve tenderness and then achieve exterior texture? Because that's what we crave in our food culture. It's like we like that charred exterior on the steak. We like the crispy skin on a chicken. It's like, and you achieve that at the end. But with wild game, it's key to achieve tenderness first, because it's not some lazy farm animal. And so those two things won't happen simultaneously like they can with a chicken or something like that. So confit enables you to do that, exactly that, and to kind of get tender and then finish it after that.
I'm interested to see whether my mic has been picking up my stomach growling this whole conversation. everything you're talking about, I'm like, bro.
We normally
Make me
record
hungry.
in the evening after a day's worth of eating, not in the morning.
Yeah.
When I'm not always a big breakfast guy. Usually it's just coffee and go. But yeah, I'm regretting it this morning. I guess we're sort of like coming up on the tail end of time. So we will slide it in there then. Any sort of like last thoughts, Jesse, you want to leave us or the guests with? Anything you want to say about the book or anything just in general, please.
I love talking to you guys. It's a really fun conversation just because it just goes in the directions, like you get it, you read the book and it's very enjoyable to be able to talk about stuff like this. I want to address your turkey really more than anything. And because I think that, we're trying to bring people into the fold and become turkey hunters. And I think that it's very important to take it the way that you have, with a lot of patience and grace and knowing that it will happen and a willingness to put in a lot of time, because at the end of the day, it's kind of what I illuminate in the book or talk about my own personal experience. It's not about, it's a cookbook. I'm lying if I'm saying it's not about dead turkeys, because that's key. But it really is a lot about that journey, and it sounds kind of hokey, but there's no more enjoyable time to spend than in the spring and out in whatever woods you got, and that's the cool thing about turkeys is wherever there's woods, there's turkeys. It's like mesquites or pines in Georgia, or ponderosas where you're at, or maples up in the Northeast, or just dense hardwoods in the Midwest. It's like they're everywhere, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of have that experience. And when you get that bird in the next 15 to 14 days, it's going to be golden. It's going to be such a remarkable event, and you're never going to forget it. And you'll be able to do that with your kids. And then you have conversations about conservation, because at that point it's going to be imperative for you to ensure that your kids and their kids can experience the same magical thing, and a respect for nature and a respect for the process, and that you don't always get what you want. And turkey hunting will teach you real quick that you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need, and that is what you need, particularly looking like you do right now. We're very pasty and sickly.
Yes.
You need vitamin D, and I would actually recommend a quarantine. So I know, and you're in Colorado, so I can't think of no better place than the closest national forest.
Agreed. Well, thank you for that. Solid recommendation. I'm going to pass it on to my boss. It's been always a pleasure to chat with you, Jesse. I'm glad we get the opportunity to catch up every couple years. We'll close that gap some and chat more for sure. And thanks for taking the time to come on the show. And everybody out there, thanks for listening. You can head over to either the website, scroll down on whatever podcast platform you listen to. You'll see the links to get your copy of the turkey book. We'll throw the Instagram pages in there that Jesse's got, both his personal page and the Wild book. So if you got any questions or comments or thoughts, ideas, stories to share, whatever, you can reach him there. And then whatever podcast platform you're listening to, please punch that 5-star button. Leave us a review. Tell us we're doing right, or tell us we're doing wrong. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.